we go. All right. I want to welcome everyone to a special Rebound episode of the Shadows podcast. I'm your host, Trip Odenheimer. And today, really cool moment for me as a sports fan. I'm not going to lie. I remember watching her story, the tournament run on Sports Center and watching it on ESPN, tracking it back in 2001. But Jackie Stiles, she has set many scoring records throughout her time at the time, Southwest Missouri State. And she's the first woman to score more than 1,000 points in a season, women's college basketball. She had 3,393 points. Was that correct? That number?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe so. Got it.
Record that stood until 2017. She helped Southwest Missouri State reach the Final Four, which is pretty cool. It was in St. Louis. And she was the 4th overall draft pick of the 2001 WNBA Draft. We're going to get all into her story. She's had time as an assistant coach. She was inducted into Women's Basketball Hall of Fame 2016. I could probably sit here and read more of her accolades, and it would take up this whole episode. But ma'am, welcome to the Shadows podcast.
Well, Trip, thank you so much for having me on. You made me blush with that really nice introduction.
Well, I'm blessed that you're taking time to do this. And for our listeners out there, where are you located at?
So I'm in Springfield, Missouri. So I'm back where I played college ball. So it feels like I'm back home, even though I am from Kansas. It's just been really great coming back to the community.
You probably don't have to pay for a soda or a burger or anything in that town, just walking around.
Well, I will tell you that people have been so incredibly good to me through so many different things that I've experienced, and the support they've given me. So I was like, how can I find a way to give back to that community, in a platform that aligns with me. And so it's just so, I'm so happy to be back.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for those of you just listening to this on the podcast, she's legit rocking the colors and everything.
Once a bear, always a bear.
Well, we're going to go ahead and get you started with our 5 rounds presented by our sponsor, Giant Worldwide. Head over to giant.tv/shadows. Check out all the good content they have over there. So, ma'am, my first question for you. What is a fear that you have?
Oh, what is a fear that I have? Well, we kind of talked about it briefly before we were recording, but public speaking, I mean, getting up in front of people and talking, I always get so scared. I've made myself kind of overcome it, but there is not a time that I am not like extremely nervous before I speak in front of a group.
Yeah, I've said it before on here. I think Jerry Seinfeld said it when he was like, more people would rather be in the casket than reading the eulogy. That's how much people are afraid of public speaking.
Wow. No, that is intense right there. An intense statement.
Next question for you. Favorite basketball player growing up?
Oh, easy. Michael Jordan. I was obsessed. I
there
watched
you go.
I could about him. I read everything I could about him. I loved Michael Jordan.
I had a lot of Kobe fans on here, but MJ, that was my guy growing up, and he's a Tar Heel.
Yeah.
So, sidebar, what was that one moment where you met someone, basketball player, where it was kind of a pinch yourself moment, like, oh my gosh, am I really standing here talking to this person?
Oh gosh, I've had several of those, and not just with basketball, but just different people that I've been exposed to. Mm-hmm. Well, at the time, this is before his fall for grace, and this is not a basketball player, but I'll never forget, I was going through a rough time where I was going through all my injuries, and I had read Lance Armstrong's It's Not About the Bike book, and him overcoming all he did with cancer and winning the tour, and here I'm going through these injuries. And so I guess I was a Nike athlete and he was a Nike athlete. I don't know how it happened, but everybody knew I was just a huge fan of his and was using his story as inspiration. But after I got off a flight somewhere, he had left me a voicemail encouraging me. And so like that hit me, because after I read his book, I was obsessed, and obviously his stories changed, but that was one moment. And then I met when I went to the ESPYs, and just the people that you were surrounded by. I remember I go, right behind me was Will Smith, and I got my picture taken with him, and just the who's who. I remember, I was around all those, great basketball players, the
Yeah.
NBA, WNBA. So there's too many to even pick, but I'm like, really, is this me? Am I in the room with these people? So that's the one thing about, athletics is, it's blessed me to just be able to meet so many different amazing people from different, venues and different walks of life.
That's like super cool. I appreciate you sharing that. That's cool. What about book? We have a book recommendation link on our webpage. What book would you recommend to our listeners?
Okay. Well, one book that just really impacted me, and it's simple but so powerful, is Leave for God's Sake. And that I read that when I was really getting into college coaching. So that had a huge impact on me. Another one I would say is the four agreements. Love that book. Very practical. You can apply it to your life. And I know I'm supposed to give one, but the 7 spiritual laws of success too was another one. But those are just 3 kind of really popped into my head. So
okay. And we will have those books on our book recommendation list on the website. You have a ticket. You can go on a dream vacation to anywhere. Where would you go?
I've always said I want to go back to Hawaii. I just got to go to Honolulu, and I remember the climate being so incredible, and I would love to go and see all the waterfalls.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm torn. It's Hawaii or Italy. I mean, those 2 are on my bucket list, both of those. So I don't know. It's a toss up.
Where at in Italy?
Oh gosh, I want to do, and I don't know exactly where, but I want to do all those famous hikes that, and I don't know, I need to research it, but I am obsessed with pizza. It's like my favorite food of all time. So I want to have traditional, just authentic pizza there. I don't even care where. So
you made me jealous about meeting Will Smith and everybody. I went to Naples and had pizza, and it was incredible. We had to stand outside, and they gave you a ticket, and you had to wait to get called in, and it was the brick oven and legit. It was nice. It was nice.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely jealous of you now. So
yeah.
that. So
Italy's one of my favorite countries.
Okay. So where all did you go there in Italy then?
We went to Pompeii. We did Mount Vesuvius. We went to Naples. We took a train throughout there. We went to spend a day in Rome, did the Vatican, and then Venice. Venice is probably top 3 place for me. But the place that I tell people I'm like is an absolute gem over there is Verona. It's where they have the Romeo and Juliet balcony. Their Colosseum is actually older than the Roman Colosseum, but Verona is, if I could go back, I would probably go to Verona first. It was that nice.
Okay, well, that's on my list, and that's where I will go.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, well, I can't wait to hear about that. But final one, guilty pleasure.
Guilty pleasure. Okay, everybody makes fun of me, but I absolutely love carbonated drinks. I only drink carbonated. Like, I will not drink regular water. So it was like,
really?
I have a refrigerator full. I mean, I'm sure I would save so much money, but I love like just any kind of carbonated water. I love pop, but I try to get myself off of like diet pop. And that the way I do it is I drink everything carbonated. So, it's always my dream. Have you seen those drink machines?
Oh yeah.
Certain, you can pick all. Yeah, I want one of those. I actually looked into it. It's like $25,000 for that, and doesn't even
really.
Product. Yeah. So I probably will not, be investing in that. But yeah, I love just having my fridge full of any kind of drinks that my heart desires. So
you like sparkling water, you would definitely fit in Europe. That is
okay.
Yeah, because we found out when we went there, right when we moved, I would go somewhere and I'm like, I'll have a glass of water, and they bring it out automatically with the bubbles in it. And
okay, that's my place.
Yep. You bubbles. Have to ask for no bubbles with your water. Yep.
Okay. I need to go then.
So those 2 questions fell perfect back to back with each other. Well, next question for you. So actually you have survived the 5 rounds, and now we're going to start getting into your journey, and what an awesome story you got. If you don't mind, take us back to your upbringings in, I know I'm going to butcher this, Claflin. Kansas?
You got it. You nailed it. You nailed it, Claflin.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll edit out that long pause that I had to get ready for it. But talk to us about your upbringings in Claflin.
Well, I was very fortunate that, my dad was a basketball coach, and he got me interested in the game of basketball really young. I would follow him to the gym, and he coached the boys varsity, and I get to hang around him, hang around the gym. And, I love my upbringing in Claflin. There wasn't a lot of distraction. So what we did was play sports. I mean, and I was a 4-sport athlete. I did, basketball. I mean, I did tennis in the fall, cross country, and then track. But, a lot of times, if you're not from a small town, you're specializing. But really, I loved my upbringing, and it's actually my favorite place to go back to when I have free time, because my cell phone hardly works, and it's just a quiet, easy pace of life. So I really am thankful for my upbringing, because like I said, I didn't have those distractions. I mean, what we did was we just would go play sports, all year round. And so I love my upbringing.
Those were the days, just playing sports all day long and coming home all dirty from it. And what, second grade, is that where you started to really fall in love with basketball?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even say before that. Like I said, I would go and I love hanging out with my dad in the gym. I would ride the bus to his games, and I just couldn't get enough of it. But I told my second grade teacher I was going to play professional basketball when I grew up, and that was before even they had professional basketball for women in the U.S. But just at that young age, I had that vision of that's what I wanted to be good at, and I didn't realize what a blessing that was. To know exactly what I was going to do with my life at second grade. And I even remember, like we would, you'd lay down on a piece of paper, and you'd have a partner trace you out of paper, and then you color it in. Well, I'll never forget, like my parents going to show and tell, they knew exactly who their daughter was, because I actually added a basketball in my hand. And this is at second grade. Like, yeah. So, I mean, I was that obsessed from a young age. So.
And when did you know, like, all right, I'm not just good at basketball, I'm like really, really good at basketball?
Well, I can just remember little, different little things. Like I remember, my dad sent me to a camp, and it was, I loved KU basketball at the time growing up when I was younger, and my mom went to KU, and I got to go to a Kevin Pritchard basketball camp. He was one of the stars way back in the day. And I remember he pulled me aside, and he said, if you keep working, you could one day, have a really great future in basketball and do special things. And that, even though I was just a really young, grade school, that stuck with me. And that was so powerful, like him saying that to me. And so now I love that the roles are reversed, and I get to do that for other young players, because like still to this day, I tell that story, like it just impacted me that much. But and I would always kind of make the all-star teams, and I remember, I think this was like maybe kindergarten or first grade, that we had to do a test, and you had to dribble ball, and I would just dribble the ball like crazy, like it was like a part of me, and that was really young. So I just kind of always kind of stood out pretty young, and got to be on the all-star things, or got picked for I don't know, the MVPs of different camps. So it helped having that success young, because that drove me to even want to be better. So.
And what a good message too. It just takes one person to see something in you and bring it to your attention that you may not necessarily see in yourself. And that's so cool. You get to do that now with others. And tell us the story about breaking your wrist in high school, and how that was kind of a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, for sure. So I broke my wrist. It was like the third game of the season, and I was devastated. I thought my world was coming to an end. I'd never missed a practice game.
Dreams are over with.
Yeah. Oh God, crushing. Because, at that age, you're just like, oh, my world is ending. It's just, you don't have that perspective. And so I sit out 4 weeks, and I have a cast that goes past my elbow, and it's a hard cast. So I'd convinced the doctor to let me play the second 4 weeks casted, but he would put a soft cast on. So I still couldn't straighten my arm, but at least I wouldn't hurt anyone else. And so I got to play the second 4 weeks like that. So I taught myself how to kind of, fully play left-handed in the 4 weeks I was out. played 4 weeks left-handed, got the cast off right before playoffs. And my whole goal in high school is I wanted to win a state championship more than anything. Like, that's what I wanted to do. And here we are in the semis of the state tournament. And, after you've been casted for a while, your muscle atrophy. So my shot had been inconsistent coming out of the cast. And I had the worst performance of my career in the semis of the state tournament. I was 4 for 21 and we only lost by a couple points. And, I was just devastated. I felt like I let my team down. I was embarrassed. And at that moment, it would have been so easy for me to be like, you know what? I'm not going to invest that much time into basketball anymore. I'm just going to walk away. But I said, no, I want to be even better than before that injury. And that's when I vowed to make 1,000 shots every single day. And I did that from my sophomore year in high school till my freshman year in college. And then my college coach was like, you try to do that and, keep up with your academics and the travel, you won't have any legs left. So that's when I developed more of a quality over quantity workout. But to this day, I don't think I would have been the player I am if it wasn't for that adversity and that injury, because it just made me work, that much harder and appreciate the game so much more after having to, sit out and realizing it could be taken away from you at any second. And so, and I think we all go through those difficult times. And whenever you're trying to accomplish something great, it's not if you face adversity, it's when, and it's how you handle those times usually depends on, will you reach your goals or will you do what you set out to do?
Yeah, that's the true test, is adversity. Yeah, 100%. And speaking of, everything paying off, you started getting recruited by some big name colleges. And I mean, when it comes to, women's college basketball, there's not a whole lot bigger names than UConn. And UConn was looking at you, Kansas State, you had Southwest Missouri State. I heard this story in an interview. What was it that made you decide to go to Southwest Missouri?
Well, okay. So the recruiting process was very difficult for me. I have a hard time saying no. And so not a good combination. I had 18 home visits in 19 days. It was absolutely insane.
Wow.
Yeah, it was wild. And so I finally narrowed it to 4 schools, and it was Missouri State, UConn, Kansas State, and Oklahoma. And I struggled so much at that point that because any of those schools I felt like would have been a really good fit. And true story, I saw a psychic hotline advertised and it gave you so many free minutes. And I was like, that's it. I'm going to call a psychic. And so I called a psychic and I said, hey, I can't decide where to go to school. These are my schools. And the psychic's like, well, personally, I'm a Tennessee Lady Vols fan. I would like to see you go there. But since they're not on your list, I guess UConn. So needless to say that, calling the psychic didn't really help me make a decision. But I actually signed the letter of intent to play at UConn, and I was going to sleep on it. And I just knew in my heart it wasn't where I wanted to go. And I was finally able to say, you know what, I want to go to Southwest Missouri State. And it was like actually a disappointing day when I signed, because no one could understand why I would choose Southwest Missouri State. It had that directional name. A lot of people thought it was a Division II school, but I started getting recruited when I was 12 years old. They were the first to recruit me. A coach just happened to see me play my first AAU game, and they started writing me, and I went to camp there. And I knew the kind of program they had, and they had been to a Final Four one other time. And, I just knew the coach there, Coach Burnett, would push me to be the best I could be on and off the floor, where my parents could see me play, where if I go to a UConn, they're never going to see me play in person. And that was important to me. So I was finally able to say, you know what, I want to go to Southwest Missouri State. Thank goodness I had the courage to basically go against everybody else, because no one thought that I should choose Missouri State. But I went with my gut, and best 4 years of my life. It was such an incredible experience.
And what I think my biggest takeaway from that is, what a bad psychic. Like, she should have never tipped her hand that she was a Lady Vol fan. She should have just been like, all signs point to Knoxville. She should have just, yeah. How was your dad and you mentioned he was a basketball, or he is a basketball coach, right?
Yes, still coaching.
Yeah. So how was he when you said, I'm not going to UConn, I'm going to, he gets to see you, you're closer, but did he think that was a good decision, or was he like, UConn, national titles?
Yeah, no, him and, my high school coach were really like, come on, how can you say no to UConn? And my mom fell absolutely in love with Sherry Cole. I mean, she did not let me down for years, but I got to redeem myself because I got to work for Coach Cole. So now, she's okay with me because I picked her the second time, but neither parent said, go to Southwest Missouri State. Now I knew they would support me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, like you can listen to other people's opinions. But bottom line, you are going to be the one living with that decision, and you have to follow your heart and your gut, and you can't go wrong that way. But it's hard, especially, being 17, 18, making that kind of decision, that's why you got to get really clear on what's important to you in your college experience. And I just knew it was a really good fit as far as the people, the players and the coaches. And that is so much that's what's going to determine your experience. And I was right. It was one of the most incredible 4 years of my life. So
yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, your high school, no wonder these colleges were looking at you. 47.5 points per game in high school. That is crazy. And then as a freshman in 98, you scored 618 points. You had 20.6 as a freshman. Sophomore year in 99, you had 823 points, 25.7 points per game. And you didn't really slow down from there. You got into your junior year in 2000, 890 points, 27.8 points per game. Going into your senior season, you were only 792 points away from becoming the all-time D1 women's basketball leading scorer. When was that on your radar? Like, oh my gosh, I'm, walking into history right here.
Well, people started, mentioning it towards the end of my junior year. And I was somebody that never focused on individual awards. I was just such a fierce competitor. All I thought about was, how could I help my team win? And it just so happened that my gift was putting the ball in the basket, and that was the role I played. But people started talking about it early on. And I know I mentioned Michael Jordan, but another person I idolized was Pistol Pete. And I read so many of his books, and I was actually reading one of his books, and it was chronicling like how he felt when he was about to break the record of all time, leading scorer and all those different things. And that's the one player I saw so much of myself in. It's just as far as like how we thought, how we practiced, we had kind of similar injuries kind of that ended our career. Our strengths are our weakness. Yeah. My drive, made me accomplish, many incredible things, but it also ended my career as well, because I didn't have that balance. But so he was somebody that I was like reading about how he handled that experience. And then I was then living it. It was wild, but it was something I'll never forget. And, I was thankful when it was over because it was a lot of pressure, especially as I got closer to breaking it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I bet. I actually read somewhere they called you Pistol Pete with a ponytail.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, what an honor to be, called, that when I looked up to him so much. And I usually don't tell people that, but I really saw myself in him. Not that I'm as good as Pistol Pete, but like just how he thought and how he practiced and all those things. There was just a lot of, similarities, but yeah, so it was definitely an honor when people called me that. So
yeah, I mentioned to you before we were recording that I was talking to Dale Brown the other day, and he told me really long story about his first interaction with Pistol Pete and him basically being embraced by the LSU family, and basically going to him and saying like, hey, I accept you as the new coach. And it was a really cool story. But yeah, that was March 1st, home game against Creighton. You scored 30 points. That's where you set the record. And then in the Missouri Valley tournament against which was kind of cool, your shooter Larry Bird's team, Indiana State, that is where you set the record for all divisions. So you broke like the D3 record. And I mean, just incredible stuff here, what you were doing. And this is where me personally, I love where the story ends up going, because we go into the NCAA tournament and the regional semis. You became one of my heroes. 2001 NCAA tournament, y'all go into it number 5 seed. You beat Toledo, you beat Rutgers, and then you go into the regional finals, and y'all are facing Duke, the number 1 seed. and you know that this is your senior year. The Final Four is in St. Louis. So like, how cool would that be? And you've got the number one seed standing in front of you. What was your mentality like going into that game?
Yeah, I mean, just really going into the whole NCAA tournament, I was just like, I am not going to have any regrets, because I think being a senior, it can do one of two things. It can have you can raise your level because this is it, or you can clam up because you feel the pressure and the weight of this is it. This is my last shot. But like, I was just like, I'm going to let it all hang out. I'm not going to have any regrets. If I miss 5 shots, I'm not going to hesitate on the 6th. I'm just going to go for it with all I had. And, so leading up to after we had beat Rutgers, and what a blessing that was. At first, we were so upset with our draw because we had to beat Rutgers on their home court. They were a Final Four team the year before, had everybody back, and hadn't lost. Hadn't lost on their home court. And so by beating them, that gave us confidence that, what? We can beat anybody, even though the outside world was not giving us a shot. They were like, wow, what a great run by Missouri State, making a Sweet 16, but their run's about to come to an end because they're playing number 1 seeded Duke. But it did not matter because every single player in that locker room believed we could win. And what was so special about our team, and it taught me a valuable lesson, is, on paper, we weren't near as talented as Duke. Every player on that team was an All-American. We had one, but you can do so many incredible things if you get a team that plays for each other and doesn't care about individual accolades and just completely buys into their role. We had just great chemistry on and off the floor, and we were able to do something so special. And obviously our work ethic, we outworked, the things that we did in training to lead up to that. It put us in that position. But yeah, I'll never forget that moment. When we were able to beat Duke and we had 1 game left to the Final Four, it's just the most amazing feeling when you accomplish a dream. And even more importantly, it was looked at as an impossible dream, but we all believed it was possible.
Yeah. And the team dynamics that y'all had that year, and like you mentioned, I was going to say, like, everybody's role on the team, it was definitely understood. And y'all go in there and you beat Duke 81-71. You had 41 points. You're officially my favorite guest ever. 41 points against Duke. And then y'all go to the finals, the regional finals. You beat Washington. Do you remember that feeling, like going there and cutting down the nets, heading to St. Louis?
I'll never forget. I was like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? And I remember, and I addressed the crowd. I forgot about it, but then I remembered because our radio guy was telling me about it. But we were so upset because we thought we were going to get to host the first 2 rounds, and we didn't get to. We got sent all the way to New Jersey, so it was tough,
But then you go to Washington.
And then Washington. So we're, clear across the country. But I told the fans, I go, this will not be the last time we play in the state of Missouri, when they were all crushed because we didn't get to host. Yeah. But we just had that kind of belief that we were going to do it. And we were like all really superstitious. And so we had added up, all the seniors added up their numbers, and somehow it equaled 314, which is the area code for St. Louis. So we're like, oh my gosh, we're like a team of destiny. But that moment just still stands out in my head when I'm like, oh my gosh, we really did this. We are going to a Final Four. It was the most incredible feeling, I've ever had in my life. It was amazing. So
yeah. I could see it even just mentioning that, like, for those of you not watching the video, but hearing the audio, like, you lit up when I mentioned. Do you still have like your piece of the net when you cut it down?
Yeah. Okay. Yep. In my desk in my office, I chose to do it out here where you're seeing my living room, but in my desk, in my office is still there on my desk. So
I always wonder that. I always wonder what people do with you always see them like put it in their hat or walk around with it. I'm always, what do they do with their piece of the net? I would have that thing framed above my fireplace.
Yeah. No, it's on my desk in a little kind of like a container, little Lady Bear container type thing. So,
nice. That's nice. Yeah. Well, then you go to the Final Four, and just cap off an incredible career, going from as you mentioned, a community of like 600 people to the Final Four. You've set all sorts of Division I records. And then you get, and you win the Wade Trophy, you win the Broderick Cup. So you had experience with we didn't even talk about that, the Team USA. What was that experience like?
Well, my ultimate dream was to be an Olympian, and
Yep.
unfortunately, I didn't, achieve that. That's kind of when my injury started happening. I got invited to try out for the world team that turns into Olympic team, and I was one of 14 for 12 spots, but couldn't try out because that's when my body started to fall apart. But man, when I first made that first USA basketball team, and I can remember like I was kind of an unknown because I was coming in from a small town, and
Yeah.
I had done a lot of the national tournaments and stuff, and I was so motivated because I was like, the gear, the USA to wear, awesome. I know, like
The bag,
yeah.
everything.
Oh my gosh, to wear that USA gear, and I had never flown before, so I'm flying to Colorado Springs. That was the first time, and I remember, gosh, forgetting my shoes at somewhere else. I had to play in an old pair of shoes. That was a train wreck, but it was an amazing experience. I actually made 5 USA teams, because that's how you kind of have to do it. You have to make the younger teams like the Junior
Mhm.
World and Jones Cup and different things. And what a great experience, because with USA basketball, when you're going to those different countries, they make sure that you get to do sightseeing as well. So you get to experience some of the countries. So it was just a really great experience, because when you're playing against and practicing against the best players in the country,
Yeah.
then that really shows you where you need to get better. So getting to do that as young as a senior in high school really showed me where I needed to continue to work and improve my game. So it was a great experience.
Well, it paid off because in 2001, you were drafted 4th overall in the WNBA draft, and you went to the Portland Fire. And what was the biggest transition you noticed from college to professional basketball?
Yeah, it's just, again, the size and the speed. I mean, everybody was just, huge. Like I was one of the smallest 2 guards in the league. And, I remember playing against a girl that was 7'2". I mean, and to give you a visual, my head came to her waist. I remember like at the screen, I'm like, this is doing nothing, it's
You're
like,
what, 5'8"?
yeah, 5'8".
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that was the biggest difference. And, I can kind of remember like, just kind of being not in a funk, but like thinking, okay, can I play at this level? And then I just had this breakout game, and I was like, okay, yeah, I can play here. But it's just intimidating at first, as a rookie, when, you have a wide age gap as well. I was
Hmm.
coming in as a rookie being, 22, and then there's maybe, players that are 32, so it's just a different dynamic as well. It's more of a business like setting, where in college you do everything together as a team, and in the pros it's like, well, you eat your pregame meal whenever you want to, and you just show up, when you're supposed to, and it's not like you're doing everything together,
Yeah.
because there's a wide age range, but it's different, but definitely dream come true. I mean, to get paid to play basketball, wow. I mean, I'll never forget that moment either.
So, two-part question. How did it feel on draft night? And then how did it feel fast forward and you win Rookie of the Year?
Well, yeah, I was like, okay, you're sitting there in this room, and you're wondering, will you get drafted and where? Because that's where you're going to live for the next however many years, And
Yeah.
so, what a moment when I got drafted by the Portland Fire. I'm like, really? Like, this is happening. When I told my second grade teacher I was going to play professional basketball one day, and
Yeah.
even though she looked at me like I had 2 heads, I mean, to be able to accomplish that, which most people thought I couldn't, they're like, oh, you need to, you live in too small a town, and then, you went to a mid-major, you needed to go to a bigger program, all those things. And I'm too small to play at that level. So, it was just, wow, I actually did achieve it. Something I'll never forget. And then, really, I tell people the award I'm most proud of, if I'm talking about individual awards, is the Rookie of the Year trophy, because so many people thought that I couldn't make it at that level. And my career is very short because injuries, ended my career early. But that, just winning that award, I guess, validated me that, what, I could play at that level, and I did play at that level. And I just think my story is inspiring for others because I'm relatable. No one has
Mhm.
ever said to me, seeing me on the street, that, oh, you must be a professional basketball player, because I'm 5'8". I
Yeah.
just blend in with the population. So I would say that would be one of the most, the awards I'm most proud of.
Yeah. And you mentioned the injuries. Let our listeners know, like, because I mean, your injuries started to kind of add up there. When did you first start to sense like, oh no, my pro career might be a little snake bitten here.
Yeah, I mean, it was towards the end of my rookie year. I was having just really so much trouble. Actually, no, it was my end of my rookie year, my wrist was starting to bother me. But I didn't think it was that serious. And then I ended up having to go have an operation. I had torn ligament on my right wrist, and so that's always concerning. It's my shooting hand, and
Yeah.
So I had a really frustrating, off season, basically going into my second season. I couldn't get motion in my right wrist, and so that's my follow through. And then because I was doing that, I was starting to have shoulder pain, because I was doing a repetitive action, and then, it wasn't mechanically right. And so I go in, my kind of one regret, I guess, if I was to say I had one, is convincing myself that I was healthy to play that second season, because I played started that second season with, a wrist that wasn't bending. I ended up having a torn rotator cuff in my right shoulder and a partially torn Achilles. And so, I convinced myself that I could play that second season with all of those injuries. And it was one of the most trying years of my life, because they'd sit me out because I'd be too injured to practice. And, a lot of people, that might be a player's dream, to just, play in the games and not practice, but I hated it. Like, I got my confidence through my work ethic, knowing when I stepped on the court, no one had worked harder. And so that was just a really hard mental struggle, and physical, just going through all the pain that I was playing with. So
when did you get to that point with your injuries where you're like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to do this anymore?
Well, so I ended up coming back. I tried one attempt at a comeback after 4 years, 13 surgeries. I went to play in Australia, and I actually had to go and enter a little bit late because I had agreed to go to a award show. And so I flew like all night. They had a game the next day, so they're only going to play me a few minutes, just, because I hadn't practiced or anything. And so I play in that game, and I was just so excited to have a uniform on again. I did not, there were so many times where I thought I'd never play again through that 4-year span of trying to get my career back. And I was so excited. This is power adrenaline, that that night I was like, gosh, my chest hurts after I only played a few minutes in the game. So I happened to mention to the trainer, I was like, I don't remember hurting myself, but the next day we started practicing. I feel like I'm having a heart attack. I had broke my rib in the game. Did not even know it because I was so amped. Adrenaline, and then I sit out the heal the broken rib. And then I have, like, when I start practicing and playing again I have this left knee pain that was just terrible. And the doctor looked at it and it's like, I'm not going to let you play on it. And, basically sent me home. And so that was when I knew, like, my body just couldn't do it anymore. Like, I come back from all those other injuries, and then it's a new injury. And so that's when it was kind of the writing on the wall. Like, my mind wanted to do it, but my body just wouldn't do it anymore. So that was kind of the moment that I knew I needed to, retire. So
you picked up competitive cycling, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, because during that rehab, stint, like, the one thing I could always do was bike, and anybody that knows me, I don't miss a workout. Like, it is my drug of choice. Like, I have to have a workout. And so
it's like coffee.
Yes. Like, I tell people it's like eating. It's like breathing. Yeah. Like, I have to have it to function right. It's just, I really feel like I'm physiologically addicted. Like, if I don't do it first thing in the morning, sometimes I'll get a headache and I'll go work out. My headache's gone, I mean, it's just,
I'm the same way.
Okay. Yeah. Can't you make me feel normal? Because
yes.
Everything I'm nuts. I mean, to the point where I was diagnosed with cancer in 2017, and I had to go and do this treatment in isolation. And my mom was mortified because I was like, I'm not going 6 days without a workout. I brought my trainer into this room, and I mean, it became my bike trainer. It became like such a scene, because the doctors and nurses had to see, did I really have an exercise bike in my room for treatment? But I did. So that's how powerful working out is for me. But yeah, I did. I got into competing in cycling. But the one thing I didn't love about it is, one, the fear of being hurt, because, when you go down, you're pretty hurt. And I'd been hurt enough, after the 13 surgeries. Yeah. And then two, I realized that as you go up the ranks, it's not so much about just the toughest rider. It's a lot about strategy and, and, you might piddle around for the 50 miles. And then, let's say it's a 55-mile race, and then just hit it hard the last 5 miles. And, it's just equipment, it's not just going out and running, a lot had to do with the level of your equipment, so I just didn't quite love it like I did, basketball or running or some of the other things that I had done, but I tried it for a little bit, and it was a good experience though.
And I can imagine coming in there with that bike, and they're like, she was the 4th pick at the WNBA draft. She's leading scorer in college basketball.
So no, it was fun. I met a lot of cool people and experiences through my little, short biking career. And then I actually tried because my ultimate dream was to be an Olympian. And I was like, okay, if I could just make the Olympic trials in the marathon and do it without even running a marathon, because you can do it through the B standard, which is a half marathon. Because I got obsessed with running half marathons. I loved it. It's like, I love that distance. It pushed me, but it wasn't to the point where, I couldn't recover afterwards, my body. And so I made an attempt to do it. I ran a 1:17. You had to run a 1:15. So I missed it. But after that point, I literally about put myself in the hospital because my body was shot. So I was like, okay, I need to stop all of this and move on from, but I just have such a love from the physical part of it. And it's so sad. You can only do it such a short window of your life as far as competitively, so, but now I got a new thing. I'm playing pickleball. So yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll get into that. Yeah. I am glad you said that about the gym though. Cause for me, I don't know if it's just mental or what, but if I do not work out first thing in the morning and I go to work, I feel like I'm off. I feel like something's not right. I'm just I'm not all there. But then whenever I get my workout in, I'm fine.
Yeah. Same, my energy's not the same. I'm sharper mentally after I get workouts in. I mean, and I can do it okay if I say if I'm meeting somebody later, and maybe that's why I didn't, because I can kind of handle that mentally, but still, I don't feel as good until I get that workout in.
If I have a plan, if I'm going somewhere, I'm like you, there's a reason why. But if it's just I woke up and just didn't go to, I can't do it.
No, me either. Oh my gosh. So what's your form of working out? What's your go-to? What do you do now?
Cardio and weightlifting. I focus a lot on weightlifting, but cardio is, I'm not on your level anywhere of cycling, but I do ride the bike. But I have to get that sweat in first thing in the morning.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for making me feel so
and if I work out and I don't sweat and I'm leaving, I'm like, that didn't feel right.
No.
I've wasted that workout. I wasn't doing it good enough. So now I'm the one I'll take up 2 sides of the cable thing to just keep my heart rate going, and don't talk to me when I'm in there.
Yep. That's my time. That is, yes, I agree.
And there is, I'm sure he's not listening to this, but there's a guy that goes to I have a garage gym, and then we go to a gym here, and there's a guy that always wants to talk to me in the mornings. And I'm like, no, this is my world. My wife says I'm rude to him, but I just don't talk to him.
Well, yeah. And, I've literally had to change gyms for that very same thing.
It's gym etiquette.
You have to go, and then somebody wants to talk to you the whole time, and you can't literally get your workout in. And I'm I can't take this, yeah. So,
yep. Yeah. Okay. Well, we've clicked right here. So
we've bonded.
Well, so and everybody heard our therapy session here. So in 2016, you go into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. What was that moment like?
Oh, wow. I'll never forget. I was fighting back tears because you get to actually pick a song to have whoever you pick walk you down. So I had my dad walk me down. Yeah, it was really cool because he was the one, that introduced me to the game. And, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for all he did and sacrificed. And my whole entire family, my mom working 2 and 3 jobs so I could have those opportunities. And I actually picked the Rocky song, soundtrack song, and so I walked down to that, but it was just, I'll never forget that moment. I'm like, is this really happening? I'm being inducted to the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, but to accomplish something that means I had an incredible support system. I mean, you cannot accomplish something like that without that. And I look back at all the people that sacrificed for me to be able to do that, from, my family to, my teammates who made me look good all those years, like, setting screens and delivering the ball to me when in scoring position, to my coaches. And so it was just a team effort. And I share it with so many, that honor, but it was something I'll never forget.
How fitting to have the Rocky song playing for your story. I just think that's like very fitting for that. And then you'd mentioned it earlier, but ocular melanoma in 2017. What was your mindset like going through something like that? Because we've had a bunch of guests on here they've had cancer, they've had all sorts of unfortunate situations, and I don't know, I just love hearing like their mindset, like the positivity, just how that gets them through so many of these situations. But what was yours like during this situation?
Well, I was just when I was diagnosed, blown away by the outpour of support from, people all over the country, from text to the thousands of letters. I have a picture, and I have all these cards just piled all over me in my bed. I'm getting ready, and I take a picture with my surgeon, that I'm getting ready to have the, treatment. And, it was just so touching, and I'll never forget it. And I remember being so sick in that treatment room, and, my mom could spend 30 minutes because I had radiation, so I could only have visitors for a short time. And so during that time, and I'm just sicker than a dog, she's like, bebopping around the room, and I can't even imagine getting up out of bed. And I'm like, how did I ever have the energy to do that? But she would read these cards, and, all those prayers and all that support, really got me through a difficult time. And that showed me, like, I know I'll never be able to pay that back, but I'm going to pay it forward. And so I vowed from that moment on to do at least one small act of kindness every single day, because you don't realize how just an encouraging text or a little handwritten note, what that does for people. And I got to experience firsthand for so many people coming to my aid through a difficult time. So I vowed to do the same for others. But, I wouldn't wish cancer on, anyone, but it's made me better. I mean, I'm actually, anytime you go through adversity, you've got to find the positive out of it, because what other choice do you have? You've got to turn it into a positive. And, it's made me so much more present. And, you got to think, like, it just made me get my priorities in line. And, none of us are promised tomorrow. So if there's something you want to do, why are you waiting? It's totally made me make the most of, each and every day. And definitely I continue to prioritize, my faith and the people in my life.
Yeah. And love the outlook. And just like you said, it's what we say here on the show is, when those obstacles and adversity strikes and you conquer them, it just becomes part of your story and makes you stronger. And you've been doing some great stuff. You've got basketball camp. How cool is that now to have all these young kids who are just, you're, like you said at the top of this, getting to kind of give back that moment and see something in them or spark something in them. How cool is that opportunity?
Oh, it's been so rewarding. And so I look back in the first half of my career, I was very selfishly focused. It was all about, how can I be the best basketball player I can become? And that's all I thought about. And now I know, so many people sacrifice for me to do that. So it's my time to give back to others and help others, be more and do more than they ever thought possible. And so for me to, get to do that at these basketball camps, because I really feel like our greatest legacy is, every human life we can impact for the better, even if it's just one, and so to take the time to, say a couple encouraging words or send a workout to somebody that's been to my camp. I always tell them, anyone that has attended a camp, I will forever be your coach. If you need anything, reach out to me at JackieStiles.com. I will get back with you, and I will help you with anything you need, because I know so many people did that for me so I could live out my basketball dreams.
That is so cool. Yeah, that's so cool. They're not just a number coming through there, and that is awesome.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I think my phone is ringing, and I've never had this happen on my computer. I'm sorry.
I do all the editing. Yeah, well,
okay.
So Talk to us now about total training and next gen fitness.
Okay, yeah. So I'm really excited about this opportunity because when I look back at my life, the one constant for me is working out, fitness. I know every machine in every gym, and I could, tell you what level I do on it, what brand I like. I'm just, it's the one thing that's been a constant in my life. And I think, what better way than, that's something I enjoy, and that's where I could really serve people and help them be their best. Because as we talked about, it's life changing working out. I mean,
Yeah.
and I want others to feel that kind of energy and to feel good about themselves and to have that confidence. And so I got approached by somebody that had already owned a next gen and was part of the next gen franchise. And he had me come in, do a workout, instantly fell in love with it, and I love what they stand for, and we really aligned. And so basically it's a private personal training studio, and so you get your own individualized workout, you get your own cardio, nutrition. So it just, I love that relationship piece. That always fills me up. So getting to know clients one-on-one to help them be better, and to build teams in my gym to share what I've learned as far as leadership through coaching and
Yeah.
having great mentors. One of those being Coach Sherry Cole in my last 2 years at Oklahoma, to be able to help people be the best leader they can be, because we're all going to be leaders of something, whether it's a trainer being a leader of a client, that client being a leader of a household. So to pass on those things that I've learned to people, it's really exciting.
If people want to find out more info about that, where can you point them to?
Yeah, so you can go to JackieStiles.com, and I have everything on my website about next gen and J Styles Soul Training, as far as my camps, clinics, and speaking. So yeah, it's JackieStiles.com.
Okay. And a couple of final questions here for you. What is the one thing that you really learned about yourself during the recent pandemic?
I need people. I need people. So I was in Norman, and I had just taken a job the year before, and I was a workaholic. So I didn't really get to meet a lot of people because I just sold 2 homes from Springfield, Missouri. And so my second year, here's the pandemic, and I don't have family there. I'm single, and I ended up going 17 days without seeing another human. And I understand why, the whole, or, being isolated from people is such punishment and torture,
Yeah.
because it was difficult. And, the blessing of that is when I came back to Springfield and I had this amazing community of people, maybe at times I would have gotten, I would never say annoyed, but, just if, people stop you all the time, but now I embrace it, because man, going 17 days without seeing another human was very difficult. So I
Yeah.
need people, and, they fill me up, and, I always make them a priority.
Someone mentioned to me today, it's funny you said that, because they're a super introvert, and their energy is just bottled within. And I was talking to them, and they said that for them, they're like, when the pandemic happened, I was so happy. I didn't have to interact with people. I didn't have to do, but then I talked to someone immediately after, and they were like, I was going crazy. I had to get out and interact and talk to people. So it's kind of interesting to hear those different takes on that. But tell us about. I heard the story about you with an Uber driver.
Oh, yes. So so I end up right after, so Coach Cole retires. So in coaching, when the head coach retires, pretty much the whole staff loses their job, and so here I am in between jobs, and I ended up deciding, okay, I'm going to go be an assistant at Tulsa. And Penninger Chevrolet in Republic, Missouri, basically Springfield, Missouri, has always supported me throughout my career. And all my other coaching jobs, I had been provided a car, but if I ever had to buy a car, I said, I'm going to buy one from Penninger Chevrolet. Well, so I go, and that we had a hailstorm, and already in Norman was a shortage of, rental cars, even in Oklahoma City, all the surrounding areas. I could not get a rental car. There were none. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to get an Uber, and I'll go to Springfield that way and get my car, because I'm going to buy from Penninger Chevrolet and then go on to my job at Tulsa. And So this guy picks me up. I have these 2 huge bins and big bags because I was going to be there a couple weeks before I got to come back home in Norman. And so he drives me around for 15 minutes, stops at a gas station. He stops at the pump. He says, I've got to get gas. I was like, okay. He goes in. I'm like, does he not have a credit card? But anyway, he goes in, comes out and says, I can't take you. I have bad tires. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? Just drove me around 20 minutes. I don't even know. I'm in this kind of what area I'm in, leaves me there stranded. And I'm like, is this real life? And I have my
With
bag,
all your bags and everything.
Everything. Yeah. And so then I have to rebook an Uber right then and there. And by the time I did that, I could have took a flight or a charter flight cheaper, because I mean, it cost an arm and a leg because I had scheduled it before and it wasn't too bad. So finally I get to Penninger Chevrolet. I buy my car. I love it. So I go down, I'm in my first week at Tulsa at my job, and I'm in a hotel at this point because I haven't found a place to live. And I walk out of that hotel and that car is stolen. I kid you not. And so found it a couple days later, got recovered, but I knew I was not aligned in that job. I knew it was not the right fit for me. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever been through because I felt like I couldn't quit and do the right thing, but I knew I could stay in it and do the right thing.
Your heart wasn't in it.
My heart, it just wasn't aligned. I have my core values as we talked about with after being diagnosed with cancer. And I just, if I'm not aligned, I just can't stay in it, now. And so I was finally able to say, you know what, this isn't for me. I want to do something different, and had that hard conversation. And I kid you not, though, that this was a Saturday. And then the preacher at my church on Sunday said, sometimes God's no's are louder than his yeses. And I'm like, I'm just telling you, the minute I took the job, everything was difficult, from getting dropped off on the side of the road to the Uber to then getting that car and then having that car get stolen. I'm telling you, it was one thing after another. And I just knew I had to make a change. And I'm so happy I did, because I'm so happy now.
Yes. There's a quote I read in the Val Kilmer autobiography, but it was, the universe's rejection is the universe's protection.
And I love that. I've never heard that. That's good.
I do too. And last question for you. Talk to us about the importance of having, especially at a younger age, a good leader, a good coach. You mentioned Coach Cole and others. Talk to us about just that importance for especially our younger audience.
Oh, I think it's huge. And like I said, I was so fortunate that my dad was a coach, and he taught me the fundamentals at a very young age. And one of the biggest lessons he taught me was humility. He would point out Barry Sanders, and he'd say, look, he scores a touchdown and he just hands the ball back to the official, does dance and celebrate and act all crazy. He says, know you're the best inside, but don't shout it out, and so, that lesson from my dad. And then of course, in my last leader with Coach Cole, I mean, I can't even put into words the things that I've learned. I always thought that you had to motivate by punishment. And she showed me a whole nother way of leading, because I always thought to myself, I can't, I'm not a yeller or screamer. I'm going to have somebody on my staff to do that, because that's not me. But you don't have to lead that way. And it was phenomenal, the things that I learned from Coach Cole, and creating an environment that people can do their best work. And so I'm just so thankful for all those great leaders and mentors that I've had throughout my career. And I just hope I make them proud in the way I lead and live my life. Yeah.
You were at Loyola Marymount too, weren't you?
Yes, I was. Yes.
Yeah. Jeff Fryer was on here last season. I think that is like one of the college basketball, like not necessarily so much the arena, but I want to see the Hank Gathers statue that they've put up out there. But yeah, Loyola. I saw that on your coaching resume.
Yeah, that my very first job was there at LMU. So
yeah, the Lions.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we got Coach Cole coming up on the Shadows pretty soon. She's going to be on the Rebound series as well. So I'm definitely looking forward to getting connected with her and talking to her. And for me, I can't thank you enough. This was awesome. Sitting here getting to talk to you and finding out that somebody is very like-minded with me in terms of our morning fitness.
We're we're in sync. We're right here.
Exactly. What final comments do you have for our listeners?
I just feel like that you have to believe that anything is possible if you're willing to work hard and believe in yourself. I always get asked all the time, if you had to say one thing, what was the key to your success? And if I had to just put one thing, I would say work ethic, because I've seen it outweigh just pure talent in anything. Like I'm a believer in, the growth mindset, that if you're willing to work at it, you can do anything. And, so that's, I guess, what I want to leave listeners with.
Yeah, so many good messages throughout this episode. This is definitely one that, the editing process can be tedious at times, but there's going to be so many takeaways just going back, listening to this all over again. So I cannot thank you enough. I greatly appreciate this. And folks will have all of her information about Next Gen, her website, everything will be listed in the episode description. Until next week, we'll see you with this episode of the Shadows Podcast.